close the matter.
Yes.
So as of now, this is completely a closed issue, sir, relating to the 2013 money stolen, payrolls through armed robbery.
Yes. The police is
Chair, if I may, I just want to confirm
yes, go ahead, FS.
is accurate. So we did examine the issue as recommended by the PSC, and we went through the process and we decided that we should close it by writing out the debt.
So FS has the or PS, whichever can answer. Was the police written to be informed of this position? Because if it was before the police, then they should be informed that it is no longer an issue, rather than them wasting their time to go behind this issue. So could they be written to and be informed of this cabinet decision?
Definitely, Chair. I would.
Thank you, FS.
Bring closure to this matter. Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Member Siraj.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For 11/2017, the Auditor General highlighted there have been overpayments on 4 lots for the East Coast Highway Improvement, lots 1, 3, 4, and 5. Mr. Chairman, can the PS give us an update as to how much overpayments were made on these lots and what measures are being taken to recover the overpayments?
Thank you, Mr. Siraj. Through you, Chair. This matter would have been raised before at our last PSC, and the position then to now, while we have written, because the process was, there was an agreement by the contractor to repay the sums. He had started to repay, and then after there was no further payment, we had written to the contractor, etc. However, there, for this particular, I think two of the lots, which is tied to one particular contractor, where the issue lies, would have now taken a sort of a different turn. There is, because of other matters with this particular contractor, the government would have engaged through the Attorney General's office, prepared a whole list of items that are outstanding, either for works not completed or where overpayment occurred. And the government had, in 2021, entered into agreement with a legal agreement with the contractor for him to continue his works and where monies are to be paid. And once those works are to be completed, he has 7 years to repay those funds, because it's not, while we were speaking of public works on 2 projects, there are several others in different agencies, etc. So there would have been a review of the entire process through the Attorney General's chambers, and the agreement reached with the contractor for repayment and completion of outstanding works.
In the agreement, is it with interest? Because 7 years from now, the value of that money would greatly depreciate.
I can't see if it's I can't see if any.
Can the PSC be furnished a copy of that agreement in the additional information that you would have had to submit to the PSC within a week's time?
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Member Siraj.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 413 is this matter. I see the agency was seeking some advice from the Attorney General. Was that advice received by the accounting officer? It's 519 for 2018 and 413 for 2017.
Yeah, this is lots 1 and 3. So Labon intention to better for obtain, right? So this would have been part of that government of Guyana agreement through the Attorney General's chamber. So this would have been one of the projects outlined where monies are due to be repaid and works to be completed.
Was this a part of the settlement arrangement for the 7 years? This $100 million overpayment?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's a list, there's an annex of a list of various projects that would have been part of the entire list of outstanding.
So the fact that there's an agreement for these contractors to overpay these overpayments within a time frame, is it safe to conclude that these contractors are still bidding for government contracts? Or else will they be in a position to pay back if they're no longer in the system?
Well, sir, to answer that question, this agreement only applied to Mr. Courtney Ben.
Oh,
This was a specific to Mr. Courtney Ben.
for the 7 year.
Courtney Ben / CompuStruct, because there were several companies with same principles, etc., that were works were awarded to during the period, etc.
So this company is still bidding for government contracts.
Well, we haven't seen any to date. What the agreement does, what the agreement outlines, is that it doesn't ban the entity from bidding to work. Bidding for work, what it does indicate is that once, if a work, you're allowed to bid, etc., but on the ambit that you pay back the monies owed to government and or complete the works outstanding that you have for government projects.
Member Ziraj?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 510-2018 is this section of the road under the agreement also. This has to do with upgrading of the highway, lot 4, Betofuakin to Triumph.
Yeah, I'm advised, yes, this is one of the projects that are part of that initial settlement agreement.
Members, there being no further questions. Yes, I want to thank you and your team for making an appearance to the Public Accounts Committee. And I would trust that you would adhere to the deadline set in providing the additional information to the members of the Public Accounts Committee, along with the contract outlining the agreement that will be, and that should be submitted by next Monday, as we would have agreed a week time. So to you and your staff, thank you for coming, and do have a good rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the PSC. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the 5 minutes break. And we are resuming with the Ministry of Social Protection. And the accounting officer before us is Mrs. Chanel Hussein Autar. Is that the right pronunciation?
Shaniel.
Shaniel, my apologies. Are you related to Anupa Autar?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Very good friend of mine.
That's good to know. My sister-in-law.
All right, Miss Chanel.
Shaniel, like Daniel.
Shaniel Hussein Autar. Would you be kind enough to introduce your officers with us? I know Mr. Tanner. Thank you for coming, sir, but I'm not aware of the others.
Okay. So on my left is Mrs. Rohi. She's a DPSF. And on her left is Ms. Sahai. She's our Special Projects Officer.
Can I have their first name, please?
Ms. Danmati and Chameli.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, the paragraphs are open, and because it's just a few paragraphs, I would like to put all the paragraphs before you for questioning. And allow me to guide you, honorable members. The former PS, Ms. Lauren Baird, is joining us virtually.
Good afternoon to everyone, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, the advisors and my colleague from the ministry. I'm joining the meeting.
Good afternoon, Ms. Baird.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, you may.
For 2017, it's paragraph 614, and for 2018, it's 723. These unspent balances, what was the fate of these unspent balances?
The fate? Well, I like to believe it was returned to the consolidated fund, but let's have the PS answer.
Yes, Mr. Chair. They were returned to the consult fund, and it was basically on the line item 6343, whereby payments to old age pension and public assistance is made. So this basically depends on the number of coupons or vouchers that are encashed by the pensioners or recipients of public assistance.
So if I may have a follow-up on that, when you budget for this sum, is it done with an expected number, and that is how you arrive at the sum?
That is correct.
So were all the persons who were eligible for old age pension and public assistance, were all the vouchers utilized, or there were vouchers not utilized?
So, Mr. Chair, what would happen is that we would issue the books to the pensioners, and then depending on the number of new pensioners or persons who may have passed away, it's up to them if they want to encash their coupons or not. So we would have had some issues whereby not all of the coupons would have been encashed in said year.
Okay. So if I may ask the audit office, considering that which is said by the PS, how is this taken as a query, given that this is more like a projected sum, anticipating, not knowing a definite number then in terms of the number of pensioners and the number of recipients for public assistance. And that public assistance is really worked on by assessing people so as to ascertain whether they fit the criteria to receive. And in any year that you're budgeting, I will like to believe that you will have to anticipate getting more, and the reality could very well be that you will not utilize all the monies, as much as the reality could be that you have utilized all and you will have to come for a supplementary. So why is this being flagged as an issue, if I may deem it that?
Mr. Chair, I can ask Audit Director Ms. Singh to respond.
Ms. Singh, are you on?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm here.
Yes, Ms. Singh. I trust you heard the question.
Yes, but we have not had that response before from the ministry as to what constitute the variance within what was budgeted and what was expended. It's only in recent years that we have been given that as the explanation. But taking into account also that, as you say, there is a pension database. You have persons that might be joining it, and you have persons that may be leaving it by way of death. So this percentage would still be very small. Of course, there's the option that people may not cash their vouchers. But as I said, we did not get this explanation before in the previous years when we were issuing this report. This is 2017 and 18.
Thank you, Ms. Singh. But before this observation is produced by the Audit Office of Guyana, and this is merely a week or two old, right? Coming from the Audit Office. The general observations, as in these observations are current date, if I may use that term. The Ministry of Social Protection, well, the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security now, former Social Protection, they would have had to respond to these observations in the 2017 and 2018 report before it comes to PAC. So may I ask the PS if there were responses for each of these paragraphs that are under question to the Audit Office so that they can update their findings and provide good guidance to the Public Accounts Committee?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there was a meeting between the ministry and the Audit Office where this explanation was given. Oh, yes.
So if I am hearing correctly, the Permanent Secretary, the Accounting Officer of the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, then Ministry of Social Protection, is saying to the Public Accounts Committee that this explanation was provided to the Audit Office. However, Ms. Singh from the Audit Office is saying that this explanation was not provided.
But this meeting was only held on Friday last for an updated response.
So then is when it was provided?
Yes.
So Ms. Singh, I'm assuming you did not know that that explanation came last Friday?
Mr. Chairman, your question on why is it a query was when the audit was done in 2018 and 2019 respectively for those 2 years. At that time, when you do the audit, that explanation was not provided. That is why it is a query then.
Yes, I understand that, Ms. Singh, and I believe I do speak good English. And this, what I was saying was this general observation was produced by the Audit Office. The general observation is what I'm looking at, not the books. I can understand that that these sums being queried in the book, the Auditor General's report of 2017 and 2018, and I can also understand, Ms. Singh, that the query was not given to you. Not the query, the answer was not given to you, but in the general observation, I'm seeing here that it's still reflected. So that is why I was asking in terms of the correlation between the general observation and what is before the Public Accounts Committee. But I do know that Ms. Baird is on. So Ms. Baird, would you care to provide some degree of clarity as to whether such response was given to the Audit Office or not?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if you look at the 2017 report, that explanation is clearly written there. It's for the reason why the entire amount on the OAP was not utilized. The same explanation that the PS gave a short while ago. So since 2017, in this 2017 report, it was presented.
Yes, I am seeing it here, and it reads, if I may, the ministry's response, the head of budget agency indicated that the ministry requests and is allocated funds based on the number of persons on the database and the projected additions based on previous year's demand. However, the ministry has limited controls over the number of pensioners who collect books and even less control over the number who presents coupons to be cashed at the Guyana Post Office Corporation. In years where the number of pensioners were present, number of pensioners who present coupons is significantly less than the amount budgeted. The result is a residual balance at the end of the year. Thus, the residual balance in the budget on the line item 6343, pension and social assistance, represent the amount of funding that was not utilized due to a reduced number of persons uplifting or cashing vouchers by the 31st of December. So, Ms. Singh, if you may assist me once more, I'm seeing that response here in the 2017. So may I ask once more if there is any other reason behind the audit office capturing it as an issue? And if there is, how does the audit office recommend that it be dealt with so that it doesn't reflect as an issue?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be unable to say if there's any other reason until it's discussed with the Auditor General.
Okay, thank you very much. But you see, and the reason why I'm asking is because the Auditor General's report is really producing us with paragraphs that he and his office finds to be of question. And we are looking for solutions to these issues. So in view of that, that is why I wanted to know if there's any recommendation that the audit office wishes to provide to the Ministry of Human Services and Social Protection so that this will not be a reoccurring paragraph in years to come. The paragraphs are still open.
Mr. Chair.
Honorable Member Jureta, you have the floor.
Thank you. Same paragraph, sir. 723. Just for clarity, could the PS say, let me just put this over in a more condensed way. It says a sum of 16.587 billion was budgeted for in 2018. But then it also says that according to the appropriation account, the sum of 15.805 billion was expended, resulting in an unspent amount of 782 million. With the explanation I was given, sir, could I ask the accounting officer, given that Program 2, Social Services, line item 6343, deals with old age pension and social assistance. 1 second. Could the accounting officer say whether or not these monies were paid, the increases for this year was paid from January to December? And if not, what months were paid for the increases that were budgeted for this year?
You mean in 2022?
No,
In
no. Yes, in 2018.
I'm sorry, I don't have that right now, but I can provide it later on.
Okay, could the accounting officers say that when this budget was done, if the budget was done to give the increases, if it is practiced by the ministry, that when the budget is done, it is done to accommodate the increases from January to December?
When a budget is done, we would use the database that we currently have and do a projection. And then it depends on what the announcement is at the Ministry of Finance, that the number would be adjusted there.
So am I to understand that, just correct me if I'm wrong, am I to understand if in 2018, like we're looking at right here, if the sum of 16.587 billion was budgeted that year, and I'm assuming that that budget included increases for both old age pension and social assistance for that year. What would be the cause if that money is not paid from January to December? That's my first question. And if not, what would be, how would the accounting process go forward if it is paid, say, from March or April?
Meaning if the increase took effect from April,
Correct.
then you would probably have a savings if it was budgeted for from January. I don't know how it was done back then. Maybe Ms. Beard.
Could Ms. Beard shed some light on that, please?
Ms. Beard, you have the floor.
Okay, in the OAP numbers, provision is made for the increase in pension. But if the pension is not paid, if the pension is paid in the year, say March, for example, the increase will take effect from March because we do not pay OAP increases retroactively. So if the monies are not utilized for the first couple months in the year, it would be a savings.
So am I to understand that when the ministry budgets for OAP, as it's for old age pension, and the budget is projected from January to December, there is no way that the ministry can actually have those monies as budgeted for paid to old age pensioners for the full 12 months?
As I mentioned, the system doesn't provide for the payment of retroactive payments. For example, in this year, the payment would be effective from March and not from January. The system doesn't provide for retroactivity.
And that goes for both social assistance also and
for OAP and public assistance, yes.
So the money is not referred to as a saving when persons are actually in need of it. Is there no way, is the finance secretary online at the moment?
Yes. Yes, Honorable Member, the finance secretary is on. You want him to clarify?
Could the finance secretary shed some light on this and actually provide some kind of guidance as to a way forward in rectifying this, because it is a grave injustice to old age pensioners and persons receiving public assistance, to say the least.
Mr. Pasha?
Hi, Chair. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask, but essentially, this was an issue that I need to study in more detail before I offer any comments. I just don't want to offer any comments without understanding fully the issues, right? But I do take note of the the comments made by Mr. Retta, right? I will also study the issue, provide the PSC with a response. But I need to understand the issues fully before I make any comments on it.
Could I ask, Mr. Chair, with the comments? Thank you, Finance Secretary. Could I ask the Chair, with the comments made by the Finance Secretary, could we also ask the Finance Secretary in giving his assessment of the situation, be tasked for the purpose and the benefit of these persons that are suffering this loss, for him to actually make a recommendation as to the way forward on this matter, because we are currently, even right now in 2022, dealing with this as we speak. So can I ask the Finance Secretary if he can actually give recommendations on a way forward, because it is my opinion, sir, that when we are here at the accounting aspect of things, then we also need to understand that there is a performance audit that needs to be done. And when we go into Parliament as parliamentarians and we approve a budget for old age pensioners and persons receiving social assistance for 1 year, a 12-month period, so that those persons receive the benefit of those monies for a 12-month period. So I believe that it is unacceptable for us not to find a solution on this matter.
FS?
I noted the comment by Mr. Retta, Chair. So I will sit with the team at Finance and the Ministry.
Thank you very much, FS.
Right. Thank you so much.
Honorable members, the floor is still open for questioning. Honorable Member Siraj, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2017, 619, paragraph 619. Mr. Chairman, we had an amount of $504.7 billion allocated for capital expenditure. However, only $303.3 million was spent. Can the PS inform us how this affected the capital expenditure? What plans were not executed? What in terms of the capital profile for 2017?
Well, if I am accurate, the question speaks directly to Ms. Baird, who was Permanent Secretary at the time, because you're asking what plans were affected, which obviously would be in keeping with the government's policy at the time. So, PS, if you wish to tender a response, no problem, but I'm sure Ms. Baird would like to also speak on this. So, before we take you, Ms. Baird, I'm going to give PS Autar. I know there's a name before that. PS Hussein Autar, the opportunity to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, going through the notes, I found that $200 million was budgeted for the rehabilitation of an administrative building and construction of a revetment parking area and driveway at High Street. There was the undertaking of a design cost, and a consultant was taken to the amount of $3.9 million for the design of the bid documents for this project, but it was a policy decision to not move forward with it. I don't know if Mrs. Baird would like to add anything.
Mrs. Baird, you have the floor.
No, that is very accurate. A policy decision was taken not to continue with the project.
Thank you, Ms. Baird. I hope that brings clarity to your question. Comrade Siraj.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Honorable members, the paragraphs are still open. Madam PS, I turn your attention to paragraph 616 in 2017 and paragraph 725 in 2018. I want to first ask the audit office to give me some guidance. I am noticing that for 2017, the observation is 48% of the total employment costs for the 4 programs. Oh, no, I see it there. Thank you, I saw it. So, PS, there was a decision, a policy decision by government in circular number 1 of 2017, which was dated 7th of February 2017, which required the persons who are eligible for pensionable establishment to be placed on pensionable establishment. And I see in 2017, there were 268 contracted employees for 2017 and 202 contracted employees for 2018. Can you say what disturbed the ministry from proceeding to get these contracted employees on the pensionable establishment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From the report as well, I noted that as of the end of 2017, there were 73 employees under the age of 45. And by the end of 2018, 39 were there remained on contract under the age of 45. And the decision was that the persons under the age of 45 should be transferred to the pensionable establishment.
How much is that for 2018?
39.
I am seeing here 60. However, at the time of reporting, there were still 60 contracted employees who were below the age of 45 on the payroll. Shown in the table below are the salary ranges of 212 contracted employees.
Yes, but then there was an update by previous PS saying that the current status shows only 39 staff are on contract as compared to the 60 in the report.
Okay. Yeah, but what has caused these numbers to, why are there still people on, or why were there still people?
So for the 39 persons, 18 of them were social service assistants, and their JDs were not approved by PSM. 2 of them were microcredit officers, and their JDs were also not approved. There were 6 ministerial appointments, and the remainder of them were not qualified. Since then, though, 6 of them were able to upgrade themselves, and they were appointed to the pensionable establishment.
So that's 26 you accounted for there, 18, 2, and 6.
18, 2, 6 is ministerial, and then the rest were not qualified. And the remainder weren't qualified.
And okay, that's
39 minus.
That will bring you to the 39.
Yes.
That's 13. What were the job description of the 13? Or not a job description, a designation?
2 probation and social service officers, a patient care, 3 patient care assistants, a store clerk, 2 registration and license officers, 1 system analyst, and then the director of social services.
The Director of Social Services. That's you, Mr. Tanner. And you're not qualified?
Work qualification.
Okay. So may I ask do you have the date of employment of these 13 persons who, as mentioned, were not qualified? And when I say date of employment, they were on contract. So there could be a chance where, like Mr. Tanner, I'm sure, Mr. Tanner, you served more than 1 contract thus far. You're on pensionable establishment now, but before, when you were on contract, your contract had to be renewed. So from the original contracts of these 13, can you say when is it that they were employed?
I can provide that information.
Much appreciated. The paragraphs are still open, Honorable Member Siraj.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2018-741, paragraph 741 and 740. First, 741, Mr. Chairman, there's a overpayment here of about 12% of the contract sum. And I'm not seeing any indication if the agency is taking any action to recoup this overpayment. And secondly, in relation to 742, we could appreciate some amount of overpayment due to calculations and all of that. But it is stated here at 742, Mr. Chairman, that $8.3 million was made available to the contractor for supplying and placing crusher run to the access road surface. However, on inspection, it was revealed that no crusher run was ever supplied. So in view of no crusher run ever being supplied, how is it that the contractor could have received payment for work that he didn't do at all? And in 741, like I said, I can appreciate the work was completed. Some payments were made, but on measurements, it was found that an overpayment of about 12% or $8.3 million was made. If that observation is correct, what measures are being taken to recoup this money? And secondly, what action or actions were taken in relation to 742, where the material was not even supplied and the contractor was paid?
Before I ask the PS to respond, Honorable Member, permit me to first ask, is there an engineering department in this ministry?
Mr. Chair, there is a works, there is an engineer currently who was employed in 2019, and there's a superintendent of works.
So before that employment in 2019 for this engineer, who was responsible for these capital projects?
When I examined the vouchers, I saw they were certified correct by the acting procurement manager at that time.
And so in 2019 is the first time this ministry got an engineer?
Yes.
For all the years of its existence, there was no engineer?
I don't know, Ms. Baird, can you answer that? I saw in the files that I saw, it was 2018.
Ms. Baird?
No, there was never an engineer there. There as mentioned by the PS, there was a superintendent of works. So when we have these projects, we will have to...
There was a superintendent of works?
Yes.
So that was 2017, 2018, which are the years we're examining. These projects were spearheaded by a superintendent of works.
No, the big projects we take on consultancy services.
So do you consider the construction of a fence at the New Opportunity Core on the Neeming as one of the big projects?
Yeah, that was the fence. Yes, was I can't remember the exact amount, but it was a big project, inclusive of the same road that they said wasn't done.
Okay, so let me ask this now, because I'm going to learn here also. So the consultancy form is the form that provides the ministry the guidance that the project is completed and payment should be done?
Yes, but we have our superintendent of works who work along closely with the procurement manager. They would go and examine the works to ensure that it's completed before it's signed off on and the payments are processed.
Thank you, Ms. Baird. We're getting somewhere now. So the ministry, and I'm coming back to Honorable Member Siraj's question, but I'm trying to establish some fundamentals here. So even though the ministry links with a form, a consultancy form, the ministry has two officers who are in the ministry, paid by the ministry, and their purpose is to verify that basically what the consultancy form is saying is accurate before a certificate of completion is produced and sent for processing so that payments can be made. Am I accurate with that?
Yes. Yes, you're accurate. That was before we take on the engineer. With the engineer on board, the engineer took up everything.
Good.
In terms of
Thank you, Ms. Baird. I understand exactly what you're saying. The superintendent of works, is that person still in the employ of the ministry?
Yes, he is.
Yes, he's still in the employ.
Okay, is he present with you here?
No, he's not.
Okay, the gentleman at the back, is that gentleman a part of your?
Yes, he is. He was the acting procurement manager who also signed off on the document.
Okay, but
so he is one of the two that has.
Yeah, well, we didn't get an introduction of him, so
sorry, he wasn't here then. This is Mr. Ryan Bechu.
Brian Bechu.
Ryan Bechu.
Okay, so I think, Comrade Siraj, some fundamentals were established there now. So may I ask you for just to repeat the question so that the distinguished permanent secretary can provide you with some further guidance, because I will have some follow-up also.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, there were two questions, one on paragraph 741, I think it was. Anyway, the one has to do with an overpayment on the fence of about 12%, about 8.3 million. And so my question was, what steps are being taken to recoup this overpayment? And the second one has to do here also overpayment, but this one was more glaring in the sense that the amount, let me see, 742, yes, paragraph 742, an amount of $8.3 million was paid for a crusher run, to supply and place crusher run on the access road. The audit revealed that no crusher run was ever supplied. So how is it that the ministry could have made a payment for something so easily verified? And right, so that Mr. Chairman, was my two questions on the two paragraphs.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, I reached out to the consultancy services who overlooked the project.
Can you provide the name of the consultancy?
Innovative Engineering Consultancy Services.
Innovative?
Yes. Innovative Engineering Consultancy Services.
Yes, dear.
And the response was that please be advised that during the physical verification exercise, It was identified that the breakdown of payment being used was based on a forecasted payment certificate.
A what?
A forecasted payment certificate.
So the payment was made based on a forecasted payment certificate.
That is what is in this report from the
Finance Secretary. Mr. Pasha, are you still on?
Yes, Chairman.
Can you guide us on what is a forecasted? PS, can you repeat that?
It was based on a forecasted payment certificate.
A forecasted payment certificate?
Well, what I could tell you right off the top, right, is that you should only pay for measured work. That is the rule. So I don't know how and when the rule was changed, right? But based on my understanding, you could only pay for measured work. That is the principle applied across the system. So that is a shocking revelation.
So FS, have you ever heard of a forecasted payment certificate?
Well, I just heard it. I just heard about it.
Have you ever heard about it before?
No, this is the first time because I mean, you were in the system, right, Chair? You're in the system, and we had this discussion. We have this discussion every week. You should only pay for measured work, right? You can't make any forecasts, right?
So who created this certificate, this forecasted payment certificate? Or before we go down that road, let's complete the answer to the questions that Mr. Siraj, Honorable Member, has asked. And then, because I think we need some, I have some follow-up, but let's complete the answers to Honorable Member Siraj's question.
So with regards to Honorable Member's question, no, the repayment was not recovered. The overpayment was not recovered as yet. Because this document came in that said that there is a revised as-built payment certificate which was prepared and submitted that allows for the removal of a crusher runs, and it consisted of some variation orders which were signed by the contractor, the consultant, and Mr. Bechu. So I would be guided by Ms. Beard and Mr. Bechu.
I think we need some guidance also, because I think we need to understand with greater clarity, rather than for us to make any assumptions on how this actually happened. So I'm going to ask the committee's permission to give the procurement manager at the time the opportunity to provide us with some clarity, Mr. Brian Bechu. Mr. Bechu, first of all, the contract for the construction of the fence at New Opportunity Corps on the Neiman Essequibo Coast was awarded in the sum of $69,536,000. And that was awarded by MPTAB against an engineering estimate of $81,614,000. To the lowest responsive bidder of 28 bidders. The advertising details, the date on which the contract was signed, start date, completion date, and defects liability period could not be determined from the document presented for audit examination. So we need some clarity on why the document that was presented for audit examination did not reflect these dates and these periods. And as of 31st of December 2018, the sum of $69,216,000 was paid to the contractor. I want to know if at the time when this money was paid, if the fence was completed. Can you provide that answer?
Thank you. At the time that the payment was made, no, the works weren't completed.
So
The consultant, it was coming down to the year end, so we end up prepare the payment in advance, knowing what the works would be, and he reflected in the final certificate the change of scope, which expend the amount of money.
So if the works were not completed in 2018, December 31st, how is it that this contractor got paid, I would say 99% of the money?
He didn't get paid the money until it finished. The check was cut, it was processed and cut, and he wasn't paid until the work was to expend the amount. In order to expend the budget allocation, the check was cut, but he wasn't paid until the work was complete. The final certificate reflects the variation order to show what was the difference.
So let me ask something then. So so this check was cut, or for this check to be cut, all these documentations have to come to show that this is the value, right? Which means that you or the superintendent of works would have had to produce a document to verify that this is the amount of money that should be paid for this work, as in a certificate of completion of the work, as in measurement figures in terms of so much centimeter or millimeter or inches or whatever. But something had to come from your department to spark the process of payment. Those documents, how were they generated?
They were submitted by the consultant.
And this, I guess, is the forecasted payment certificate?
Correct.
So the consultant submitted forecasted. So the contractor, the consultancy form, submitted forecasted payment certificates to your department.
Yes.
And what you did with those documents or those certificates?
We sent it through the process because it was coming to year end and the ministry didn't want the funds to go back. So we had to cut the check, hold it, and then move forward.
Finance Secretary, can you provide some guidance, please?
Sorry, Chair. I don't know that what was just explained is permissible, right? It goes against the principle of making payments based on measured works. So what would happen is that the consultant, along with the engineer, would work out the value of the work completed, and may even get the contractor involved if there's any disagreement. But at the end of the day, you should only pay for works that were completed.
So, Ms. Baird, thank you, Mr. Pasha. Ms. Baird, would you care to provide some guidance on this, please?
Well, Mr. Bechu has given the explanation, and I don't think that it was an overpayment because the road that the access road that was supposed to be done was in reasonably good condition. So a crossroad was done instead, because I think that is a road that led the cattle out of the area to graze. And I understand that it was the same length as the original road. So it was not an overpayment, but it was a change in the scope of works, and the final certificate was submitted to reflect that.
Okay, so let me get this clear. Thank you, Ms. Baird. Let me get this a little clearer now. So this 8.333 million that was discovered to be overpayment, the monies were actually used for a different road, not the road that was originally supposed to be done. Am I right?
Correct,
Yes?
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Chairman. And the auditors went up to NOC and they saw the works that were done.
Thank you, Ms. Baird. Now, let me ask, how is it that the ministry went down the road of wanting to do this particular road? How did they come to this conclusion that we are going to go down the road of putting 8.333 million for a road, and when the money done put for the road, when the award is already made, then the ministry realized this road is in a good condition and we ain't gonna do it anymore. Then we go do a separate road. That advice had to come from the technical people of the ministry. Am I right, Mr. Bechu?
You're correct.
So is it good? I'm correct. So is it you, sir, who would have provided that information to the ministry that this road needs to be done?
The consultant, at the point of visiting the site before the work commenced, before the design was done, the road was in a deplorable state. However, the region had done some work on the road.
The region did some work on it after?
Yeah, after.
Unknowing to the ministry?
Correct.
Okay.
So it was already budgeted for, it was already in the bill of quantity, so we end up having to move the funds to do something else.
Okay, so that's greater clarity. So the region, they really did the work, and the region did not know that the ministry was looking forward to do the work, right?
Correct.
These explanations that are coming out here, were these explanations provided to the audit office? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned earlier, they went and they saw the road that was done, and they also, this matter was discussed with the Auditor General when we met to discuss the issues, and he asked that we work along with the engineer and get it sorted out. And Mr. Bechu met with the engineers, with the audit engineer, and they were given all the documentation, and they were taken to the site to see the works that were done.
So let me ask something here now. So the audit office, current PS, are you aware that that explanation was given to the audit office?
I spoke to Mrs. Baird during last week and Mr. Bechu, and they informed me that they had sent over some documents and had communicated with the audit office.
Okay. Before I ask the audit office, this second paragraph, this 742, with reference to what Honorable Member Siraj was speaking to, this paragraph, the conclusion of this paragraph was drawn from the fact that you were looking at the original road that was in the document and not the road that they actually did.
Mr. Chair, when we did this physical verification, I have the soft copy of the voucher here with me. The crusher run was already paid for in this valuation. They were explaining that there were some changes to the scope. We asked the ministry to present the final payment since this was a practical completion payment. They, however, submitted a valuation, which was signed by the consultant and I think the contractor. It had no payment voucher attached to it. It did not go through the system. It changed around works, what we would have called the overpayment of to the tune of 8 point something million. It was now showing other works that would have negated that overpayment. We advised Mr. Bechu at the ministry that we have to get the legal document that went through the system that would have passed through accounts that would be accompanied with the payment voucher and the requisite documents for us to consider and go through. When we would have visited, my engineer would have visited the project, not myself. This was the road identified to us when we were there. And I'm not aware of another road being done with the crusher run that would match the same dimensions as this. So the document we are holding as an overpayment is a legal document that we have in our possession, which I have here with me, that is signed and certified. And I think I need to shed some light on how we go about and do our audits too. The information presented to us, the legal documentation that goes through the system, that is what we use. We cannot use a valuation that comes after the fact without going through the system. We've had instances when we would have filed overpayments and agencies would do back the valuation to negate that overpayment and just present it to us. And we find issues there again. So that's why we try to stick to the legal documents that goes through the system. Because in this instance, the ministry has admitted that it was a forecasted payment. So in the first place, the contractor received $8-something million for crush run that was not there. So to find other works now to match back that after the fact, we wouldn't be setting a bad precedent by accepting certain documents if it's not contractually sound or is not in keeping with the contractual requirements. If there's a variation under a contract, we need to see the approvals for those variations. It's contractual requirements. We also need to check the rates and the engineering necessity of those variation works because they just can't make up works to balance that overpayment. We need to look at the rates from that additional or variation works and compare it to the rates in the contract because works of a similar nature under similar circumstances got to carry the same rates. So it's a process that we have to go through before we can clear those overpayments. But that can only commence or be done once we have the requisite documentation. So that's the case with this one.
Thank you, Auditor General Office. Now, I'm sure that current PS, you would agree with me that there are a set of anomalies here. And I trust that the guidance that was provided just now by the engineer from the Auditor General's office will ensure that there is not a reoccurrence. I am happy to know that the ministry in 2019 endeavored to engage and hire an engineer who is trained and has the competent skills to ensure that the process is honored, that is established. I am a bit worried about this forecasted payment certificate. Never heard about it, but you know, they say you're not too old to learn. Would you be kind enough, PS, to lay over to this committee the document that you have from the consultancy form that requested this forecasted payment certificate?
Yes, I will lay it over.
Thank you. Honorable members, the paragraphs are still open. And I think, if I may, before we proceed, I think Mr. Finance Secretary, Mr. Sukrishna Lal Pasha, I think you are in a better position to provide some further guidance to accounting officers, especially in light of hearing of this forecasted payment certificate, so that we can better the system of accounting for the taxpayers' money and more so for better transparency in the system. Mr. Pasha?
Yes, Chair. We definitely have some. Have some things in the system which we need to pay attention to. I do accept that with training, continuous reinforcement, circulars, we could remedy this issue, right? But the system, the public sector does not allow you to innovate the way I see some persons wanted to innovate, right? It is based on, the systems are based on rules, right? And this must be one of the few agencies that apply that rule. Maybe, Chair, you would want to ask if that is the only instance, given the fact that the audit office just audit a sample of transactions, right? I don't know if that is this particular transaction was unique and is a really unique one, right? But we have to continuously remind the officers, the technical officers, who accounting officers depend on, right? So know what is right. Those are my contributions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Comrade Pasha. You know, the consultancy service, the name is Innovative Engineering. So maybe it was an innovative move to come up with a forecasted payment certificate. But thank you, Comrade Pasha, and I trust.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much. We will continue to work with our team, to make sure that the taxpayers are comfortable that we're spending their funds.
Very much so. Very much so, Comrade Pasha. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to add to the discussion, in order not to have forecasted payments being a thing, can I add that to not forecast payments, the system is already in place. If you're going to have the project going over to the next year, there is a process whereby you can apply for a multi-year approval and have those funds roll over to the next year. So that's why I guess forecasting is not catered for.
Yeah, no, well, that is what I was getting at in terms of because you heard what they said, they prepared the document, they cut the check, but they never handed it over to the consultancy form. But it is still a violation in my view,
right,
because you can roll over when you return the monies, the unspent amount to the consolidated fund. You can rebudget, if I may use it like that. You can rebudget for the continuation of the project, and it can turn into a multi-year project. So it's very difficult.
Yeah,
Mr. Pasha.
Exactly, the multi-year. I don't know why we don't use that option. It is so simple to utilize. A lot of times we start these projects with the understanding that we will complete them before the end of the year, but because of factors outside of our control, right, we end up going over to the next year. So the safest thing to do is if recognize that you will go over to the next year, is to apply as early as possible for approval to engage in a multi-year. So what would happen is that when the budget is approved, the sum that is outstanding is first of all catered for before you entertain new projects, right? For these, so I think that is a good way to deal with these problems.
Thank you very much, Finance Secretary. But you ask a question that is pertinent, and I think I need to put it to the PS. Is this the only project that the ministry has done where they prepare these payments on a forecasted payment certificate, or were there other projects done like this?
Mr. Chair, this is the first time I've seen one of this, and I'm not aware. I wouldn't be able to see right now if there are audits.
Well, can I give you an assignment? And that is to inquire, that is to find out basically if there are other projects that this ministry would have operated, would have executed that would have caused them to make payments or cut a check on forecasted payment certificate. But I must ask the former PS, Ms. Beard. Ms. Beard, is this the first time this has happened, or is it on a practice that was there before?
I'm not aware of any previous practices before.
So this is the first time?
To the best of my knowledge.
So who came up with this brilliant idea?
Well, as Mr. Chairman, as Mr. Bechu explained, that it was coming down to the end of the year, and in order to avoid the funds from not being utilized, That
But
is
Ms.
why.
Baird, yes, I understand. I understand that explanation. But let me ask you, as an experienced permanent secretary, because you were there for a number of years, right?
Yes. Yes.
What is the rationale? What is the rationale behind trying to spend out this money in that manner, as opposed to do it and pay as per work done? Whatever sum is left back, it is returned to the consolidated fund, and in the next year's budget, we do a budget for the project to continue. What is the rationale behind trying to do something like this, as opposed to doing what I will say is the right thing?
Well, Mr. Chairman, you would know that that the budget for the following year is done orally and presented orally before the end of the year. So my thinking is that, you know, it would be difficult to get the rollover done in the following year's budget.
So supplementary requests is not considered in all of this. Now, I'm saying that to say this.
I don't know. Sorry, Chair.
I am aware that in 2018, the budget for 2019 was approved. And of course, there would have been no focus on this project, because what was said to the policymakers then is that this project gone done. So we ain't got to put it back in the budget. But it so happened, for whatever reason, it was not completed. Does that mean that it could not have come as a supplementary request to complete in the year 2019?
I'm not sure. Supplementary request is not that easy as it's said to get done.
Okay. Finance Secretary, can you provide us with some guidance?
The multi-year is intended to deal with the issue that we're discussing right now.
Okay, had we done it in the multi-year?
So that what you're basically doing is saying that, okay, we can't utilize all the funds that we set aside for this project. And we're asking the government, the people of Guyana, through the National Assembly, for the balance to pay off. The multi-year approval, the letter is a standard letter. I don't take more than 5 minutes to change the name of the PS. But it's just that sometimes we, I don't know, ignore these simple solutions and take the risk at the expense of the agency, right? Because these things are viewed by the ordinary person, right? As something which is more sinful than it may actually be, right? So it is the safest thing to do if you know that you will if you know that you may not be able to complete the project. You ask the multi-year, and it also points to the lack of planning, right? I just only last week I issued a circular on procurement planning, right? And this hopefully may serve to reduce these types of incidents, right? Because from the start of the year, you would know exactly how long, based on your past experience, it would take to get any project completed, right? So hopefully, Chair, over time, as we refine the system, these issues may disappear.
Thank you, Comrade Pacho. Para 740. Honorable Member Jureta, you would like to have the floor?
Oh, yes, sir. So I'm just trying to make some sense of what we're discussing with this strange terminology
Innovative terminology.
Forecasted payment certificate, and I'm being told that it was never seen or heard from before, as you've been told here. However, a quick check of my 2014 Auditor General's report, sir, if I may. The 2014 Auditor General's report actually, paragraph 352, I'm just giving this as an example, was saying a contract was awarded. This is a ministry of, hold 1 second. Let's clarify the ministry. Culture, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports. And it says that the contract was awarded in the sum of $4.985 million for the general rehabilitation work to the building at the Dutch Heritage Museum, Fort Island, as at the 31st of December 2014. The work were completed and the full contract sum was paid to the contractor. Fiscal verification of the work revealed that an overpayment of $453,000 was made to the contractor. The ministry's response, sir, Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports in 2014, the ministry's response as the head of budget agency explained that the ministry requested a forecasted payment from the consultant, sir. And there's another case, but I'm not going to state it for the time. Right there, Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, 2015, again, where the ministry's response was, the head of the budget agency explained that the ministry requested a forecasted payment from the consultant again, sir.
This is in which report?
2014, sir.
So this is a practice.
Well, sir, many times, and I must say, many times we come here and we speak about things, and I keep saying we have to look at it in a holistic manner and not just try to isolate these things as though it has never happened before. We have to look at it holistically if we actually want to get somewhere. Because if we were to go away with just as it has been reported today, well, no fault of the current PS because she wasn't there before and she didn't deal with it, and to the best of our knowledge is the first time she's dealing with this. However, we need to have a system in place that we can link all of these things like I'm doing right now. 2014, the contractor wasn't presenting a forecasted payment certificate as was being done here in this report. In 2014, the ministry, the head of the department, was the head of the budget agency, explained that the ministry requested a forecasted payment from the consultants, or on 2 occasions, 2014 report, Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports. So let us find a solution. Let us find a solution.
Comrade FS, I think you have been fed with some information there that requires your direct input. Apparently, based on Honorable Member of Finance's findings, this apparently is a practice of ministries, and the possibility exists that it does happen in the other agencies and so on, departments and regions. I don't know, but it is something that is worrisome. It raises the eyebrow, and I believe you as Finance Secretary will need to clamp down on it so that it doesn't reoccur going forward. And I trust that we understand that this, and I'm sure, given what Ms. Finance would have said there, that if you go back further in the Auditor General's reports, the possibility exists that you may find it elsewhere in previous years. So we at the Public Accounts Committee is all about correcting these defects, correcting these anomalies or abnormalities, if you want to call it that. And it is an experience, I am assuming on your part, current PS. So going forward, you will not have to come before this very committee to answer questions of similar nature. And at the same time, it will help us to reduce the thickness of the Auditor General's report. Thank you very much, Honorable Member Ms. Finance. I was going to para 740, but I see Honorable Member Siraj has his mic on, so I'll yield to him.
Right. Just to wrap up 742, Mr. Chairman, yeah. If there was a change in the scope of works, can we be told what was substituted for the road, the access road? What work was done to the value of $8.3 million, a substitute for the work that the region did?
The final completion certificate was submitted to showing the breakdown of the sum. To the Auditor General Office, there is the engineer and the manager as well.
Mr. Chairman, is that final certificate in possession of the team from the Ministry of Social Protection?
Yes, correct.
Yes, Honorable Member, I have it along with a letter from Innovative Engineering, which I will yield for.
So before laying over, can we just be told what was it a simple thing that was done to substitute for the project, or is it extensive?
From my understanding of it, it's not just the 8.3 that was changed. It's a number of items that were not in the previous bill of quantities that had been done after.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Member Siraj. Para 740, that speaks to overpayment also. And I see that there is a good explanation, good in the sense that one gets the understanding as to what the excess money was used for, but not good in the sense that it seems as though the Audit Office does not have the legal documents to speak to this change of scope of work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I had received an email from the Audit Office saying that this was resolved by the submission of photographs and a variation, and it was accepted by the Audit Office.
Okay, so we were not.
Mr. Chair, yes, that is for the 166 overpayment. We got the supporting documentation that we were looking for and the requisite duration orders. However, for this other one, the $8 million, we don't have that level of documentation.
So this is something that happened in the same year. So why is there documentation to verify one, but not documentation to verify the other? Can you provide that answer, Mr. Bechu? Because I doubt whether PS can. I mean, you did the correct thing. If the Audit Office is guiding us correctly, you did the correct thing for para 740. And the Audit Office accepted the documentation. And if I am guided right, Audit Office, the same procedure, the same way how they clarified 740, the same action they took is what they were supposed to take to clarify para 741 and 742.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Chair, the same day that the information was submitted for the bridge, the same time the information was submitted for the fence as well. It's the final completion certificate.
Mr. Chair, what they are calling a final certificate, it's not a certificate, it's a valuation done by the consultant that is shifting around figures to show that the overpayment is no longer there.
Oh, so the difference here is that because one was a consultancy, because it's a big sum, but the other one is really the ministry having the necessary documentation.
But this one that the consultant prepared, it's just a valuation that is moving figures around to show that, look, the overpayment is no longer there. It didn't go through their system. There is a retention to be released. We're asking for that payment voucher with that same attachment date, and we're not getting it. Because if we accept these valuations that come in willy-nilly, having not gone through the system, they can be adjusted from time to time.
There's still a retention?
There is a 3.4
to the same consultancy?
That could have been paid, yes. Under the contract, and we never got that.
Under the same contract, the same
That's
defense?
the same contract. So
that retention sum was paid?
Yes, to my knowledge, it would have been paid. Yeah. But the work is complete.
And the retention had to be held for a certain period?
Correct.
What was that period?
That period would have been, let me pull the contract.
So why, Mr. Beto, are you guys not submitting the documents that are requested? No. Call and said that? He called and said that? Mr. Alonso, can you check if there's anybody there on standby to come in? I'm told that the Honorable Bishop is trying to make his way in.
Right. Mr. Chairman, based on what the audit engineer was explaining, it's clear to me that in order for them to audit documents, do whatever audit, the documents must come through the official channel. That's my understanding.
But there's a document that the AG office is asking for. What is it, the retention?
The final payment, the retention payment, that would have
the voucher.
Released, the voucher, right.
Where is the voucher for that final payment? Because Mr. Beto, you had to, in order for that retention to be paid, the voucher had to be created. When was the final payment made?
The final payment would have been made in 2019. We will get the information future.
Well, it's the PS who has to endeavor to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't aware that I needed this voucher, but I will locate it. If I have to ask the assistance of the Accountant General, I will do so. From my understanding, what the audit office is referring to is the documents that are attached to the payment voucher that would stand. The one attached to the payment voucher had in it the supply of the crusher run for 8.3, which in the consultant form just gave a breakdown of what was done. And I don't know what the crusher run came out, but I don't know exactly what it was replaced with because it's just a list of items.
Thank you, PS. And I think there needs to be some more communication between the audit office and these ministries, because when they come here, then is when we're hearing that we didn't know that this is what you are requesting. We didn't know that this is what you were asking for. And the PS now is saying that she didn't even know that is what you guys wanted. So, I mean, if we can have better communication between the audit office and the ministries, then that will solve possibly half the issues we're having. That's a whole different story. Thank you very much, PS. The paragraphs are still open.
If there are no other questions.
That's my job.
No, I have a question. If there are no other questions, permit me to just crave your indulgence, sir. Under employment costs, if I may. I see employment costs looking at 2018 on the paragraph 724. I see the chart showing that the actual payroll at as at the 31st of December 2018 reflected 743 staff. All right. Could the PS say how many healthcare workers are employed currently with the Ministry of Human Service and Social Protection?
I can lay that information over to you.
That information not available right now?
No, I don't have it.
Okay. Thank you. And is the FS still online?
Yes.
As we're on that point, sir, could the FS give us an update as to the payment to the healthcare workers that falls on the Ministry of Human Service and Social Protection that did not receive that one-off payment in December of last year? I know that some work was being done to rectify that. Could the FS give an update on that?
Mr. Pasha?
I don't know if I should be provided that information here, right? Because we're looking at a different year, right?
I know that, sir, but I know, sir, that's a matter that you are currently engaged in. So I want to know if there is any progress that is being made on in that matter, or if we should take it up with the Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh.
No, we currently working on it. We do some verification. It's not an issue that we will forget, but you could rest assured that we'll get it resolved soon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Pasha. I didn't know that there were healthcare workers that were not paid for their service, the one-off. You know, Mr. Pasha, whenever that comes up, I always remember that 7% for those chairs and vice chairs, mayors and deputy mayors. So I trust at the same time you are also working on that. But notwithstanding, the paragraphs are still open for questions.
No further questions.
Honorable members, if there are no further questions on this ministry, the Ministry of Social Protection, now Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, allow me to thank the Permanent Secretary, Ms.